Hello everyone. Today, I will continue telling you the love story of two Sam and police officer Lee. I hope you enjoy the video. Under the soft yellow light that spread evenly across the small room, the space after childbirth grew strangely quiet. The baby's crying from earlier had faded away at some point, leaving only the gentle, steady rhythm of breathing, so faint, like a fragile yet persistent melody. Sam lay on her side on the bed, her hair still slightly tousled, her face not yet free from exhaustion. Her arms still ached dully, her body drained after hours of suffocating tension. Yet her eyes shone with an unfamiliar brightness. She stared at her daughter without blinking, as if afraid that even a single moment of distraction might cause this miraculous scene to vanish. The baby rested snugly in her mother's arms, with a round little face, rosy skin, and tiny lips gently pressed together in sleep. From time to time she stirred, her tiny hand curling and then relaxing again, as though dreaming of a world still entirely new. Each small movement made Sam's heart tighten and then soften. All the pain, fear, and moments in the delivery room that had seemed impossible to endure suddenly blurred into the background. She realized that simply watching her child breathe, watching her sleep peacefully, made every sacrifice worthwhile. Lee sat by the bedside, his back slightly hunched, elbows resting on his knees. He didn't say much, only quietly observed the mother and child. Hands that had once held a gun, that had faced danger head-on, now trembled as he gently pulled the thin blanket a little higher, afraid the baby might feel cold. He had never imagined there would come a day when he would be so careful because of a tiny life. Every movement he made was slow and cautious, as if what lay before him was the most precious thing in his life, something he could never forgive himself for mishandling, even for a second. At times Lee leaned in close, studying his daughter's face. He whispered to her, his voice so soft it was almost just a breath. The words sounded clumsy, unfamiliar, yet filled with love and emotion. In that moment he realized his heart had changed. No longer focused only on Sam, but now revolving entirely around the little child sleeping so peacefully. The first days of parenthood passed in confusion and exhaustion. At night, the small room never truly fell asleep. They took turns staying awake, Lee fumbling with the milk formula, sometimes getting the water ratio wrong. Sam holding the baby, soothing her with tired yet gentle whispers. At times, both of them panicked together when the baby cried. One checking the diaper, another searching for a cloth, another worrying whether something was making her uncomfortable. Fatigue piled up, dark circles forming clearly under their eyes, yet neither complained. There were moments when the clock crept past midnight, that they were so tired they wanted nothing more than to collapse onto the bed and sleep deeply. But then just hearing the baby's soft, wheezy breathing, or feeling her tiny hand curl around a finger, instantly woke them as if they had never been tired at all. Strangely, these hardships didn't push them apart. Instead, they drew them closer. Every exchanged glance carried understanding. Every touch was a silent encouragement. We are learning to be parents together. When the baby finally slept peacefully again, the room seemed to settle. Sam smiled softly, a smile worn by fatigue yet full and serene. Lee reached for her hand and squeezed it gently. He said nothing, but in that squeeze was a long unspoken promise, that he would always be here, that he would shoulder everything with her. Together they looked toward the small cradle, their eyes filled with tenderness and affection. In that quiet moment they understood that from this point on, their world had truly changed. They were no longer just two people in love, but two hearts beating as one, living for something greater than anything else, protecting, sheltering, and loving the tiny child sleeping peacefully between them, in the embrace of a family that had just begun. Night fell very slowly, not the gentle slowness of peace, but the heavy drag of endless hours, as the baby's cries rose and fell, then rose again. The small room was never fully dark. The pale yellow night light cast shadows on the walls, revealing every tired movement of two people stepping into the world of parenthood for the first time. The baby cried. Not violently, not screaming, but in broken, persistent sobs, as if testing both of their patience. Sam leaned against the headboard, her back slightly curved. She held the baby in her arms, rocking gently, soothing her with whispers that had grown hoarse from lack of sleep. Her eyelids drooped heavily, her arms trembling with fatigue, the dull postpartum pain still refusing to let go. At times she paused, bowed her head low, and let tears fall silently. She wasn't crying because of the baby. She was crying because she was tired, because she felt helpless, because for the first time in her life, she loved something so deeply that it frightened her. Lee had been standing in the corner of the room, watching everything. He saw her shoulders tremble, saw her hand clutch the hem of her nightgown to keep herself from breaking down. He stepped closer, then stopped, awkward as a child. He had never learned how to comfort someone in such a fragile moment. Finally, he sat down beside her and wrapped an arm around her shoulders. The embrace wasn't perfect or graceful, but it was firm enough to let her know she wasn't alone. "Let me hold the baby," Lee said softly, as if afraid of shattering the silence. Sam didn't answer. She only nodded, carefully passing the baby into his arms, then quietly turned away to wipe her tears. In that moment, she didn't want Lee to see her weakness. Yet she no longer had the strength to hide it. Lee held the baby. At first, he was stiff and clumsy, his arms keeping a cautious distance as though afraid of hurting her. The baby continued to cry, her tiny face scrunched up, her fragile sobs trembling in the quiet night. Lee took a deep breath. He didn't know what else to do, so he began to walk slowly back and forth across the room, his steps steady. Then, without quite knowing why, he softly began to sing. It was an old song, very old, one his mother used to sing to him when he was little, on nights when the power went out, in their poor home lit only by a flickering oil lamp. His voice wasn't good. It even trembled slightly, but the song carried a familiar rhythm, low and warm. The crying grew softer, then stopped altogether. The baby sighed gently, her head resting against her father's chest, her tiny hand gripping his shirt. Lee looked down at her, frozen in disbelief at what had just happened. He stood still for a long time, not daring to move, afraid she might wake. Behind him, Sam lifted her head. She saw everything. That man, still clumsy, still uncertain, holding their child with a care and tenderness he had never known he possessed. The yellow light bathed Lee's face, softening his exhaustion, leaving only focus and warmth behind. Sam didn't cry anymore. Her chest suddenly felt lighter. In that moment she understood something very clearly. They didn't need to be perfect. They only needed to be together, through sleepless nights, through exhaustion, through tears without names. Lee turned back and met Sam's eyes. He said nothing. Neither did she. Just a shared look, full of tenderness, gratitude, and emotion. Enough for both of them to understand that their love, after this night, had grown a little more. English translation *. It hadn't been long since those first nights, filled with exhaustion and fragile happiness, when the peace in the small house was shaken by news that came far too suddenly. That morning Lee returned home earlier than usual. His face was heavy, the familiar smile gone, the one he always wore when stepping through the door and seeing mother and child. Sam only needed a single glance at his eyes to know something was wrong. He stood for a long time at the doorway, looking at his daughter sleeping in the crib. The baby lay on her side, tiny hands loosely curled, breathing steadily, so peaceful that it felt wrong to disturb the moment. Lee reached out and gently brushed her hair, his movements slow and lingering, as if he wanted to imprint the feeling deep into his memory. "I have to go on assignment again," Lee said at last, his voice low and heavy. The words fell into the small room without a sound, yet they were enough to make Sam's heart sink. She stood still for a few seconds, her hand unconsciously tightening around the hem of her shirt. Her mind told her this would come sooner or later. Lee's job had never been peaceful, but her heart wasn't prepared. "How long?" she asked softly. "I don't know exactly," he replied, avoiding her eyes. "Maybe a few days. Maybe longer." Sam lowered her head. In that moment, all the worry she had tried to hide came rushing back. Nights when the baby cried, moments of bone-deep exhaustion, the quiet fears of facing everything alone. She didn't cry. She only felt a cold emptiness spreading through her chest. Lee stepped closer and placed a hand on her shoulder. "I don't want to go," he said slowly. "I can't bear leaving you alone, especially now." His voice grew hoarse. These weren't polite words, but a genuine inner struggle. He looked at the baby, then at Sam, his eyes full of conflict. Yet both of them understood. There were responsibilities he couldn't turn his back on. "I know," Sam said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm just worried." Lee pulled her into his arms. This embrace was tighter, longer, as if he wanted to use his own warmth to steady her. "I promise I'll come back as soon as I can," he whispered into her ear. "Once the job's done, I'll come straight home. I'll call you every day. Whenever I get a break, I'll call." Sam nodded, resting her forehead against his chest. She said nothing more, but her arms wrapped around him more tightly. An embrace filled with both clinging and acceptance. Before leaving, Lee gave many reminders. He asked Owen, someone close and trustworthy, to come by often and help Sam with the baby. "If anything happens, call Owen first, then call me," he said. "Don't try to endure everything alone." Sam nodded. She knew he had done everything he could within his means. The day Lee left, it didn't rain, nor was the sun harsh. Just a pale gray morning, strangely quiet. Sam stood at the door holding her baby, watching his figure fade into the distance. The baby slept peacefully in her arms, unaware that from that day on, the small house would be missing one person. The door closed. The space became quieter than ever. Sam looked down at her child. The baby stirred gently, lips moving as if dreaming. She brushed her daughter's cheeks softly and took a deep breath. Inside her, sadness and worry layered over each other, but mixed within them was a new kind of resilience. A strength only first-time mothers truly understand. She whispered, as if speaking to her child, and to herself as well, "Daddy will be home soon, my love." Outside, life continued on. And inside that small house, Sam began learning how to be strong, not just for herself, but for the little one sleeping peacefully in her arms, waiting for the day their small family would be whole again. The first night without Lee, the house seemed to expand in an unnatural way. Not because anything was missing, but because a familiar presence was gone. The wall clock ticked steadily, each beat echoing clearly in the silence. Sam carried her baby back and forth across the room, her steps slow and heavy. The baby fussed, not violently but persistently, as if even the slightest unease was enough to keep her from sleeping. Each cry made Sam's heart tighten. Her arms began to ache. Her back throbbed dully. Her eyes burned from lack of sleep. Yet she kept rocking, kept whispering soothing words she wasn't even sure her child could hear. "It's okay. Mommy's here." She stopped by the window. Outside was pitch black. No passing cars, no distant lights like other nights. Only silence pressing in. Sam suddenly realized that since Lee left, the house wasn't just emptier, it was colder. The baby cried a little louder. Sam bent down in alarm, instinctively pulling her child closer. In that moment, fear rose up. A vague but unmistakable fear. Fear that she wasn't alert enough. Fear that she wasn't strong enough. Fear that a single moment of distraction could send everything spiraling out of control. She sat on the edge of the bed, breathing fast. Her hands trembling, Sam opened her phone. She didn't call anyone. She only reread the last message Lee had sent before leaving. "I'll only be gone a few days. If anything happens, call me right away. I'm here, even if I'm far. Just one short line. Yet it was enough to blur Sam's vision. She inhaled deeply, pressing the phone to her chest as if clinging to something familiar. The baby in her arms gradually quieted, but Sam began to feel dizzy. When she stood up to place the baby in the crib, her knees buckled slightly. Everything happened so fast. Sam staggered, nearly falling. In a split second, she tightened her hold on her child, leaning her back against the bed to steady herself. Her heart raced, her breath coming in gasps. If the bed hadn't been there, she didn't dare continue the thought. The baby stirred again, letting out a small cry. Sam slid down onto the floor, her back against the bed, her child still safe in her arms. She bowed her head, tears falling slowly. Not from pain but from fear. For the first time since giving birth, Sam understood a hard truth with absolute clarity. She couldn't carry everything alone. The next morning, just as dawn broke, a gentle knock sounded at the door. Sam startled. The baby was sleeping in her arms. Her eyes were slightly swollen from lack of sleep. When she opened the door, Owen stood there, carrying several bags, food, milk, diapers, and other baby essentials. Are you okay? Owen asked the moment she saw Sam's face. It was just a simple question, but Sam couldn't hold it in. She nodded, then shook her head. Owen didn't press further. She stepped inside, set the bags down, and gently took the baby from Sam's arms. Let me hold her. You sit down. Only when her hands were empty did Sam realize how exhausted she truly was. She sank into a chair, her shoulders slumping. Owen held the baby with practiced ease, rocking gently. The baby kept sleeping, her breathing calm and steady. I'm scared, Sam whispered, her voice hoarse. I'm scared I'm not strong enough. Scared my child will grow up without her father. Scared there will be moments when I can't hold us together. Owen looked at her, her gaze gentle yet firm. You don't have to be strong all the time to be a mother, Sam. Knowing when you're weak is also a way of loving your child. Sam looked up. For the first time in many days, she allowed herself to slow her breathing. Outside, the morning sunlight began to filter through the window. Not bright, but warm enough. In the small house, amid exhaustion and worries that hadn't yet faded, Sam understood this. Being a mother doesn't mean never falling. It means knowing how to stand back up, and knowing when to reach for another hand. English translation **. That night came very quickly, faster than Sam's fragile sense of preparedness. The small house sank into a quiet darkness. Sam had just drifted off when a vague unease pulled her awake. It wasn't a clear cry, only very faint sounds, the baby's breathing no longer as steady as usual. Her heart pounding, she sprang up and hurried to the crib. The baby's face was redder than normal. Her forehead was hot. Her breathing was rapid, short and shallow. Sam froze for a few seconds, as if her body hadn't yet caught up with what was happening. Then instinct surged stronger than fear. She lifted her baby, her hands trembling as she reached for the thermometer on the table. But her hand shook so badly she couldn't hold it. The thermometer slipped onto the blanket, making a small sound that, to Sam, rang out like an alarm. It's okay, she told herself, but her voice broke. The baby stirred and let out a weak cry. That fragile sound frightened Sam more than a loud wail. She pressed her cheek to her baby's forehead, forcing herself to stay calm, trying to remember what she had read, what Owen had told her. But as the baby's warmth persisted and her breathing stayed rapid, Sam's tears began to fall. She called Owen first. The line connected quickly. Sam? What's wrong? My baby. I think she has a fever. I'm so scared, Owen's voice turned serious at once, yet remained reassuring. She asked questions one by one, guiding Sam to wipe the baby down, recheck the temperature and watch her breathing. Sam followed each step, hands shaking as she worked. But when she set the baby down and looked at that tiny, flushed face, Sam couldn't hold back anymore. She opened her phone and called Lee. The ringing took a little longer. On the other end, Lee's voice came through low, tired but alert. "I'm here." Just those 2 words were enough to make Sam burst into tears. "Lee, she has a fever. I'm so scared." Lee fell silent for exactly 1 breath. Then he spoke slowly, clearly, each word measured as if to keep Sam standing. "Look at me, Sam. Pick her up. Check her temperature again. Wipe her down with warm water. Don't panic." Sam did as he said, tears dripping onto her hands, but she didn't stop. Lee's steady voice filled the phone, guiding her step by step, reminding her to breathe deeply. He asked for every small detail, how the baby was breathing, how she was crying, whether she could feed, like he was right there beside them. Far away, Lee clenched his phone. He heard his daughter's rapid breaths through the speaker, heard Sam struggling to hold herself together. For a moment, he turned away and took a deep breath so his voice wouldn't tremble. "You're doing very well," he said. "I know you can do this." Sam looked at her baby in her arms. The breathing was still quick but steadier now. The temperature began to come down. She realized her hands were no longer shaking as violently as before. She was still afraid but no longer paralyzed. Near dawn, the baby fell asleep again, her face softening. Sam leaned against the bed, her back aching, eyes swollen and red, one hand resting gently on her baby's chest to feel each breath. Lee still hadn't hung up. "I'm here," he said softly. "Try to sleep a little. If anything happens, call me right away." Sam nodded, even though she knew he couldn't see. "Thank you, Lee." When the screen went dark, the room was still quiet, but no longer cold. Sam bent down and looked at her baby for a long time. In that long, fearful night, she understood something very clearly. She hadn't collapsed. She had protected her child, with trembling hands, with a worried heart, and with a strength she had never known she possessed. Outside, the sky began to lighten. A new day arrived, soft and slow. And to Sam, after that night, was no longer just a woman ruled by fear. She was a mother growing step by step. Still fragile, still tender, but no longer alone.
Xin chào mọi người, cảm ơn mọi người đã xem hết video hôm nay của mình. Chúc mọi người có một ngày mới vui vẻ, hạnh phúc và một ngày làm việc tràn đầy năng lượng. Hy vọng rằng mọi người vẫn sẽ yêu thích những câu chuyện mình chia sẻ và ủng hộ kênh cho mình. Hiện tại thì kênh của mình đang kể về câu chuyện của người mẹ đơn thân Diệu và Lý Từ Sam. Những video của mình thì đều được phát hành vào khung giờ 7 giờ tối và 7 giờ sáng. Nếu mà mọi người yêu thích thì nhớ bấm theo dõi và bật chuông thông báo để nhận thông báo khi mình đăng video mới nhất, để những video mới sẽ hiện lên và không bị bỏ sót. Và nhớ để lại cho mình một số nhận xét ở dưới phần bình luận để mình có động lực cũng như để cải thiện những câu chuyện lần sau hay và hấp dẫn hơn. Cảm ơn mọi người đã lắng nghe một phút chia sẻ của mình. Hy vọng sẽ gặp lại mọi người ở trong những video tiếp theo. Xin chào mọi người.